Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
We're live at the Miami Book Fair, powered by Life Improvement Radio. Tolter.net for more information. Twitter, Tolter, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, Instagram, Tolter, Pinterest, Neil Haley, Google+, and also on Periscope at Total Tutor. And with my co-host, Eric Rimmel from Life Improvement Radio, lifeimprovementradio.com. Eric, thanks again for co-hosting with me this year in Miami. How are you?
Not a problem. I'm great. It's always a fun time. I look forward to it every year because we get to talk to so many new and interesting people and learn a bunch of fun stuff. So it's always a good time.
Oh, it's always a blast at the book fair, and if we can kind of go back, it's like almost a lifetime in general of just the fifth year I've interviewed people, and fourth year I've been doing it with you back and forth. You were behind the glass, and you interviewed some really interesting people when we were in Miami. Then the last 4 years, we've been doing it together. And I know that at your website, you can find all of the Miami Book Fair interviews as single interviews, right?
Oh, yeah.
Podcast, right?
Yep. Click on our podcast button, and then there's a button that says live events. You go click on that. And you'll have all the last 4 years of our live interviews. We are currently upgrading that website, so if you click the link and you see a little notice that it's not working, check back in a day or so, and they should be completely done. But we're putting in some new technology, so upgrades are always fun.
So you've categorized them, and I want to thank you again, Eric, for being almost like a sponsor for the Total Education Network to do all the work, hard work necessary to pull off this event every year. So thank you again for promoting it and being a part of it.
Thanks for including us. We have a blast and love it and look forward to doing it every year. That's
right. I just got to continue to talk my wife into doing it. And maybe I think that a good idea is, like I said, when the kids are older, we'll just drive all the way to Miami. We're not going to fly for sure. That would be too expensive. And we'll drive to Miami, and then they can enjoy the fair. My wife can enjoy the fair, and we'll interview a bunch of authors. So
definitely. There's always events for the kids, you know. I mean, I remember the last time we were there, they turned the parking lot into a snow village for one of the days. So, I mean, they always do kinds of fun stuff down there.
Exactly. So I'm going to go and connect to our great producer to help me as my co-host yesterday, Casey, the show must go on as showbiz says. And, Eric, we've had these kind of things sometimes, but explain to people how difficult it is to do live radio.
Oh, radio.
And do it in the way that you and I do it, where it doesn't sound like amateurish. We're rolling. We know how to talk back and forth. We have ideas of how to not waste time. Explain by all the production you do in Life Improvement Radio and how difficult it is to put together live shows and how you are one of the best experts at doing it.
Well, production itself is always difficult to do. And then I often tell people when they ask me that question, what's it like doing a live radio show? So open your internet browser with 40 different windows or 40 different tabs that are up, and that's kind of like how your brain works when you're producing live content. You have all these irons in the fire you're flipping around, between posting on social media, making sure all your tech problems are resolved and everything sounds good, making sure that your interviews show up and you're asking all the right questions, making sure you get the point of your interview across, and and then actually all the post-production work is equally as taxing between editing, getting it on the internet, distributing it all over the world so that people can find it and download it and enjoy it and share it. It's a lot of work. I mean, for our little 15-minute interviews here, there's hours and hours of prep time and post-production work. So it's always a fun time, but it's always a lot of work.
You got to hire a professional when you want to become a great radio broadcaster and create your own show. Going and doing it on your own, not knowing the proper tools necessary to go into breaks, not knowing specifically how to ask the right questions. Life Improvement Radio provides tons of resources for you guys, and that's the big thing is, Eric, when I came on with you, I was on terrestrial radio, but only one station, and things have changed tremendously in that time with 120-plus stations. But what I learned from you is specifically enough how important it is to have segments, take breaks, and have commercial breaks, which if you're just doing it amateurishly, you're not looking at getting sponsorship. You're not looking to grow your brand and make money in radio. And that's really one of the major reasons to want to be in broadcasting is to try to make some money.
Yeah, commercials pay the bills. Advertisers and sponsors pay the bills. If it's a hobby for you, then great. Go ahead and try it yourself. I often tell people you could buy a book and learn how to change the transmission on your vehicle, but would you want to? No, you pay a professional to do it. And that's what we do here is, we help to develop professional talent, develop professional personalities. Anyone can be a broadcaster if you have a passion and a message and a mission. It's just making sure that you have the proper training, the right tools, and understanding how it all goes together, and that's where we come in.
All right. Well, we're excited to welcome our next author, Amanda Harris. Amanda, thanks for calling. You're the author of In the Fruits of Eden, David Fairchild and the America's Plant Hunters. Amanda, thanks for calling. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. Thank you for calling me.
Well, I'm excited for you to be on the show, especially something as an educator. Anytime I get to learn about something I don't already know, it's fascinating for me. And just to know about the story and stuff is very, very fascinating. But tell us a little about your background, Amanda, and then we'll get right into the interview.
Well, my background is that I'm a former newspaper reporter and editor. I worked for Newsday on Long Island and in New York for many years. I used to cover politics, and I'm an investigative reporter. But I like records and I like history. So I got into this through my family connection. My father's mother's best friend was Fairchild's wife. So I've heard about him my whole life because my father knew him when he was growing up.
That's very, very interesting, for sure. And so when you knew about him, so that's one of the reasons why you decided to write the book?
Yes, I'd heard about him, so I decided I was looking for a book to write. I love books, and I wanted to write something that hadn't been written before. And while Fairchild was really very well known during his lifetime, he died in 1954, and nobody had ever really written a full biography of him and his work and the times in which he lived and the politics of his work and the conflicts he had. And so it was a very rich subject, I thought.
Well, it seems like a very, very rich subject. So tell us the story of this, because I had no idea about it and how it's kind of transformed food plants and stuff, for sure.
Well, he grew up in Manhattan, Kansas, and I say in the book that in his household when he was little, most of what they ate was brown. It was either cattle or corn or, wheat. They didn't have a lot of interesting fruits and vegetables, and they didn't have a lot of color on their plate. But he was a very romantic, smart kid, and he listened to people reading Tales of the Arabian Nights and books like that when he was a little kid. So his dream was to go around the world and see things, learn about the world. And as soon as he started traveling, he realized there were all sorts of exotic, tasty foods out there that he had never heard of. He had dried figs in Italy, and at the time, tomatoes were supposed to be poison, so people in America were afraid to eat tomatoes. And then he discovered figs, and I guess I said figs, but mangoes and mangosteens. Well, mangosteen was his favorite fruit.
Oh, wow.
I bet you most people don't even know what a mangosteen is now, but
yeah,
they're really delicious.
What is that?
It has nothing to do with a mango, but it's a brown, kind of looks about the size of a baseball, and it looks like a piece of wood, but if you open it up, there are these beautiful white segments inside, and it sort of tastes like vanilla ice cream with pineapple sauce or something. It's a very good, delicious fruit, and he discovered it in Java one day when he was studying there as a scientist, and it was his favorite food. And he always wanted to bring them into America to introduce them, but he failed. They really can't grow in America.
Okay. And
you have to go to the store and buy them.
Oh my! See, and that's the thing that you think about by his journey. It's, again, going to other countries. I'm sure there's a lot of pushback from the United States at times of trying to bring them back to the U.S., right, with the possibility of other things coming with it, right?
Yes. And he was very careful about this. And I think it's true that they actually didn't introduce any pests or diseases in all of these thousands of seeds and plants they brought in, but it was because they were very careful. And they had inspectors, they had rules, they would test things out, and a lot of stuff didn't make it. A lot of stuff was destroyed. In fact, the first batch of cherry blossom trees that the city of Tokyo gave to Washington, D.C. for as an international gift of friendship were destroyed because they allegedly had pests on them. And so the cherry trees that are now growing in Washington started out in the second shipment of trees that were a few years later in 1912. So they were aware of the problem of introduction of food pests, and plant pests, and they were very careful about it.
Eric, just an interesting thing. I didn't know anything about this. Were you familiar with David Fairchild's work at all, Eric?
I was not. I was just listening and enjoying the conversation here. What was the research like, Amanda? Did you have to do? I mean, this must have been kind of just overwhelming. There's so many different things you could put into this type of work. Was it easier because you had that personal connection, or did it require a lot of lead time?
No, well, I spent a long time on it, and the truth is I love to do the research. I was sort of sorry when I ran out of things to research. Because he worked for the United States government, and because his team of explorers were all civil servants, really, on one level, all of their correspondence and files are public record. A lot of them are in the National Archives in Washington. There are other things at in Pittsburgh. There's this wonderful place called the Hunt Institute for Botanical Documentation that has a lot of the correspondence and diaries of these explorers. Harvard's the Arnold Arboretum has Joseph Rock's records. So fortunately, people have collected these records for a long, 100 years. And in some cases, I think I was the first person to ever look at them. So that was exciting.
That is exciting.
Like the stuff's waiting for you to tell their story. So I got to get a lot of stories that nobody else has gotten.
That's great. I mean, it helps you get further along, and with it being public record, it just makes the whole production, easier for you in the long run.
Yeah, it was fun.
What would you say a fruit that he was able to bring to the United States? You talked about the one that could not grow. What has been introduced today because of his research that people are used to now having as a daily fruit or vegetable?
Well, I think the biggest ones are mangoes and avocados. He loved mangoes, and he really had to fight to get mangoes, to get people to eat mangoes. His boss, the Secretary of Agriculture, was completely against mangoes. Fairchild gave him a mango once that had grown in Florida, and the guy took one smell of it and gave it to one of the people who worked for him. The guy who worked for him smelled it and took it home and gave it to the guy who was his gardener. And then the gardener didn't want it, and the gardener gave it to the chickens that he had in the backyard, and the chickens wouldn't eat the mango. So that was the introduction of the mango to the United States. But they kept bringing in new varieties. They'd find new ones in different places, and they got smart about breeding them and understanding the growing conditions and stuff. And so now we really have some delicious mangoes here.
It's an interesting story, that they had to go through that much work just to get it introduced into the U.S., and especially since a lot of our food, I would imagine comes from, other locations, just because there's, all the explorers and adventurers over the, past, 500 years or so that have come here and traded and brought different things. So it's just interesting to hear that.
Yeah. A lot of it came by accident. A lot of it came by, the immigrants brought them. But this was the first sort of systematic effort to go out and collect things. They'd identify a place in the United States that needed to have a new crop so the farmers could make a living. So they'd send somebody out, kind of on assignment in an organized way to come bring back a whole lot of, for example, soybeans, different varieties of soybeans that could be grown here. So it was successful. They certainly had failures, but they had an enormous number of successes at the same time.
Wow. What's been the result of the book? Have you had a lot of interest? Since I'm sure this is something that's interesting to me because I know so little about it. So I find it very interesting. Have you had a lot of positive feedback from the book?
I've got some positive feedback. Yeah, I think people who are like food. I think people like food these days, so those people are interested. But also, it's really an American history book because it sort of captures the time when America was changing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So no, I've been very pleased by the reaction I've gotten.
I'm sorry. Is there any future books planned on the subject?
Well, yes, but it's a totally different subject. My husband and I are writing a book together about a house that we own in France that's about 800 years old, and it too is a mystery, a historical mystery. So we're
That's
trying
exciting.
to figure out. Yeah, it's a different story, but it's the same process of trying to unearth the story behind behind the scenes. So that's going to take a long time, though.
All right, Amanda, where's the best place we can find information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you? Where can we go?
Well, I think I should send people to the publisher. The publisher's been great. It's the University Press of Florida. They're based in Gainesville. Their website is upf.org. And also Amazon or Books and Books in Florida has been very, very supportive of this book.
Well, fascinating story for sure. I have to tell my wife because she loves mangoes.
Oh, good.
That I interviewed you. That I interviewed you because I never knew the story of this. And people that are food connoisseurs that like the exotic fruits, I know and vegetables will love this book. And also people that just know to learn more about who David Fairchild and what he did and how he transformed our foods in a lot of ways to make them more exotic for sure. It's very, very interesting. And Amanda, do you have any social media people can follow you on or anything, or Twitter or anything?
No, I'm afraid I'm spending too much time in medieval France now to have those things. But the publisher.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, best of luck to you, Amanda, and thanks for calling.
Thank you for talking to me. Bye.
Have a great day.
Right there. All right. You're listening to Author's Corner, powered by Leadership Improvement Radio on the Total Education Network, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.